So as we're walking off and I've just raised the bat, he was 20 not out. I just turned to him. I said, "Pup," and he goes, "Yeah, Diz. What's that, mate?" He said, and I said to him, "Pup, that's how you do it, mate. That's how you score a Test double 100," and walked off.
It's brilliant. I absolutely. I think everybody in world cricket were just going, "Have they got this right?" Gillespie 201 not out.
It was crazy, mate. It was bizarre.
Well, welcome back to the Players Lounge VIP, and it's me, as usual, Darren Gough. With me today, I've got a very, very special guest. He was a teammate of mine. He's been the coach of Yorkshire with huge, huge success, a coach of Sussex. In fact, he loves coming to England, but now he's back in his home country, Australia. The legend that is Jason Gillespie. Hi, Diz. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm very well, Goughie. Lovely to speak to you, my good mate.
Yeah. Where are you at this moment in time? Like, as you can see, I'm in the office back in the UK, in Buckinghamshire, not Yorkshire. You know that. I live in Bucks now. I've got a nice cup of coffee on the go with my favourite mug, the Rhino. You know where I'm called Rhino, don't you, Diz?
Because you're as strong as an ox.
There you go, my friend. Everybody in world cricket knows that. So where are you at this moment in time?
At the moment, I'm sitting in a motel in Coffs Harbour, which is about 5 hours north of Sydney, sort of basically halfway between Sydney and Brisbane. We had a few cases of COVID, a little cluster in the northern suburbs of Adelaide. So Cricket Australia decided, leading into the Big Bash, all Adelaide-based Big Bash players and coaches were put on a charter plane and brought to Coffs Harbour in case Adelaide went into a strict lockdown, which it actually did. And it was in lockdown for a few days, and then it's moving out of lockdown as of tomorrow.
So you've gone from the 5-star hotels of touring with Australia to the 4-star hotels of Yorkshire and Sussex, now to a motel in Coffs Harbour. How things have changed, dude.
How things have changed, mate. But look, it's lovely, and Coffs Harbour is a beautiful place, and we're about 3 kilometres from the beach, and we've got great training facilities for when we get stuck into our training and our preparation. Because I think the likelihood is, leading into BBL 10, Adelaide Strikers will be based here in Coffs Harbour for the foreseeable future. But the facilities here are unbelievable, and so we'll get stuck in and prepare as well as we can for this Big Bash edition.
Diz, I've got to get me started now. I've got to get in the mood, because we are in the Players Lounge, and normally, even though it is only just about 10 to 10 in the morning here, I have normally got a glass of wine on, because I'm off work today, believe it or not, Diz. It's Friday. But I've had to stick to the old coffee, right, because it is so early. But I've just noticed you've got a nice glass of something there. What's your choice of drink today, Diz?
I've got a little glass of organic Sauvignon Blanc, so just enjoying that. I've just been with our players. A couple of lads have decided to cook for the rest of the boys here in Coffs Harbour, and so I think Dan Worrell and Wes Agar, two of our fast bowlers, were the cooks, and the boys are all standing around and enjoying each other's company. And I joined them for a quick tipple, but I wanted to come here and chat to you, mate. So I snuck away and just poured myself a little glass of white wine, and just thought I'd catch up with my old mate Goughie.
Good luck. Have you still got the old wine, Diz? I mean, I've had a bottle of Jason Gillespie wine. I mean, is it still going?
Oh no, it was more a one-off thing, Goughie. It wasn't going to be anything long term. It was just a little bit of fun. I linked up with a winemaker, and he was keen to do that. I don't know if there's any more of them around, the old Dizzy 201, but yeah, it was a little bit of fun, and certainly a lot of fun consuming them. That's for sure.
I know. I've had a couple of bottles of it when I was over in Adelaide. But you do know I've got my own wine out now as well. It is for charity, actually. It's for Care for Wild and Animal Sanctuary, Rhino Sanctuary. I do, and it's actually won 3 silvers and 2 bronze already. Can you believe that?
Oh, I can believe it, mate. That's fantastic, and what a great initiative, Goughie. That mate. I hope you raised so much money. What a great charity that is, mate. So well done for that.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Anyway, let's get on to the Diz, because rooting to cricket, I mean, when did it all start, Diz? Many, many years ago. Can you remember that long ago?
Yeah, I can. Very early 80s. I must have been 6, 7 years of age. So 81, 82. I was born in 75. So, yeah, I was about 6, 7 years of age. And I remember watching on TV, watching Australia play and falling in love with the game of cricket, falling in love with Dennis Lillee, steaming into bowl for Australia in Test matches and one-day games. So I was hooked immediately. No one in my family had ever, back in the, looking back over our family, no one had been involved with cricket or played it or anything like that. So I've been so far the only person that's in our whole extended family that's been into cricket. But yeah, I love affair from a very young age, mate. I remember as a kid we'd go on family holiday down the coast and stay in a holiday house and near the beach. And I refused, if there was a game of cricket on when Australia were playing, I wouldn't leave the lounge room. Nice. I'd watch every ball, and I was just completely obsessed with the game. And I don't think much has changed, to be perfectly honest.
So it was all about Dennis Lillee. Was he the man you wanted to be when you were growing up?
Yeah, look, I just love fast bowlers and fast bowling. I loved everything about cricket. As I sort of learnt about the game, I learnt to love the craftsman. Sir Richard Hadley. I loved watching him bowl. Not so much against Australia. He was brilliant. Malcolm Marshall was probably my all-time favourite, if I'm honest. The late Malcolm Marshall, what a wonderful bowler and human being he was. Just absolutely brilliant. But yeah, all the West Indian quicks from the 80s. Wasim Waqar, loved Merv Hughes and Craig McDermott, the Aussies, Rodney Hogg, probably early 80s. I just loved them all, and I wanted to be a fast bowler.
Do you know something, Diz, listening to you, I never knew this, because it's a very similar start to me, really, with cricket, because when I look back at my family, none of my family ever played cricket. My dad still doesn't understand it now in his 70s, you know what I mean? So it was one of those things about I was the only one really who played the game, and I watched it on TV, 1981. Botham's Ashes. I know you want to talk about that, but Beefy was such a special part of my life growing up in 81. And I fell in love with the game. You know what I mean? I love football, but cricket I fell in love from 1981. But there's always somebody who has to influence you. So with your family not being massive into cricket days, was there someone there when you were younger that influenced you to and push you through your early cricketing story?
I think my dad was a massive influence in terms of he didn't really know the game. I think he played socially as a kid, but nothing more than that, and wasn't a huge follower of the game. But obviously my interest was there, and just being the wonderful father that he was, he just wanted me to live my dream, so to speak. And so, I remember a lot of Christmases, if I got a new cricket bat or from Santa Claus or a new cricket ball, I'm sure Dad would have loved nothing more than to have a few quiet drinks and lays on the couch on Christmas Day. But he'd be driving me up to the nets, and he'd be bowling at me for a couple of hours, or he'd be facing me while I bowled. And so it was probably just that, the support, the backing of your family, and Dad in particular, just allowed me the opportunity, because my brothers weren't really into cricket. They didn't want to spend Christmas Day at the nets. But Dad would take me up there all the time, and so he was great. And I had various cricket coaches as kids and as a kid and growing up, but the real constant was my dad. He was absolutely brilliant, and certainly he didn't know a lot about the game, but he said just keep it simple, and allowed my coaches to teach me how to play.
Did you take to cricket very quick, as in were you good straight away? Did you get in representative sides from a young age, or were you a late developer?
Yeah, I started to play quite early, young, and I did okay. And then I think at the end of primary school, I made a couple of representative teams. Then I was quite a small kid up until sort of I had big growth spurts as a teenager. And so I went from, 1 year at school being one of the shortest kids in the class to being the tallest in the grade. I had a big growth spurt, and that's when I had a lot of injury issues, backs, knees, these sort of things as a 14, 15-year-old, just, growing pains. So I kind of disappeared off the radar a little bit from a cricket point of view. I missed a whole season of bowling because of injury. And then I got into the South Australian under-19 side and had a decent tournament and was a replacement player for the Australian under-19 side, and then it just went from there because I think there was 3 bowlers that went down or 4 bowlers, and I think they were scraping the barrel. There wasn't too many left, so they gave me the call, and I did okay for the Australian under-19 side when we went to India, and it was quite ironic. It's I probably had some of my best cricket as a Test cricketer was in India, and it all started with an under-19 trip.
Unbelievable. I mean, I never had a trouble of being the tallest player in the side. I was always the smallest, so I'm still waiting to grow. I'm growing one way, and that's that way. But what about, did you have any other hobbies growing up? You weren't a stamp collector or anything like that where you did? I mean, anything else?
No, I played soccer or football from the age of 4 or 5. Organised, in teams until I was about 14. And as a teenager, cricket was always my constant. Other sports I played football. Obviously, I played basketball as a teenager, which I absolutely loved. That probably overtook football. I found once I had a growth spurt, I became quite uncoordinated with the soccer ball. But I enjoyed it. I was fullback. I played fullback, and I really enjoyed it. But then, played a bit of basketball. I played squash at high school for a couple of years. But cricket was always a constant, always in the back of my mind, and it was always my go-to sport. It was always my first love.
Never Aussie rules?
No, Mum didn't let me, which I was spewing about. I would love to have played. I would have loved to have given rugby league a crack because I was actually born in Sydney and moved to Adelaide when I was. Dad got a job in Adelaide when I was 10, so I grew up with rugby league, and that's probably why I enjoyed myself in Leeds so much, because I got to follow the Leeds Rhinos in the Super League, But I would have loved to have played some of the football codes, but Mum thought they were far too rough, so it was soccer and cricket for me.
I tell you what, I don't know if you saw this much back in the early days. We used to train with the rugby boys, Diz, at Edinley, and see them up close. The way they trained, they were proper beast rugby league. And from that moment, I used to admire their discipline, how fit they were. I've always said this in any interview: the fittest athletes on earth, obviously Aussie rules would be up there, would be rugby league players. The way they hit each other and keep running for the whole game is just out of this world, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with you, mate. Those, because they hit each other hard, so that they're constantly bashing into each other, but they're also getting up, and the agility as well of getting up, moving back into line, and then going again. There's a lot of stop-start, so there needs that sort of speed, but also that aerobic fitness. I know some of the AFL players. There's a session that the Adelaide Crows used to do back in the 90s. It was called 100 hundreds. So 100-metre runs, and they had to do them in between each 100-metre run in 15 to 18 seconds. And then every minute they'd have to go again. So it was 100 minutes of running. And one of the most brutal sessions that you'd ever hear. So, I'd put the AFL boys and the rugby league boys right up there, absolutely, for fittest blokes around, for sure.
Well, with the Adelaide Crows, when I got injured over in 2001 before an Ashes series, and I didn't make it, I thought 2002, I can't remember the exact year, I went over to Australia. They sent me to try and get fit before the first test to Adelaide. And I trained at the Crows training ground there. with the academy. Oh my word! I mean, they put me through. They beasted me for about 10 days, and I realised, but I'm never going to get fit again. It's time to go home and retire. That was the end, mate. It finished me. A week with the Adelaide Crows.
The Crows might have been on Cricket Australia's payroll, mate, to try and break you, so you didn't get to play.
Absolutely finished me, mate. Up at swimming at 4 o'clock in the morning. What was that about? I was just coming in.
Yeah.
One way to sober up. Anyway, Diz, I mean, well, I keep calling you Dizzy. I mean, let us know. Why do the people call you Dizzy? I don't think I've ever asked you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very simple one, mate. There's a jazz trumpeter in America called Dizzy Gillespie, and I got that nickname. So my first second 11 game for South Australia, the opening batsman by the name of Huntley Armstrong, he just christened me Dizzy Gillespie after the jazz trumpeter, and that was it. So I've always been known as Dizzy. My high school mates always call me Geppetto because I've got a big nose, Pinocchio's dad. So they've always called me Geppetto. But yeah, certainly in cricket, it's always been Dizzy. Yeah.
Amazing. I've heard the nose gag. I've heard that a few times, Diz. So as well, that tends to be your Australian teammates, doesn't it? That call you that.
Yeah, like Darren Lehman, for instance, your good mate, my good mate. He thought long and hard before he christened me Big Nose. He just called. I get the odd text off him or the odd phone call, voicemail. We go, "Hey, Big Nose, how you going?" And it's always it always gives me a laugh.
I've got this sheet of paper in front of me. I'm looking at some pictures of you, right? They sent me these pictures. And I remember this look, actually. Your early days as a professional cricketer, you can see them there, Diz. I mean, talk me through those. Look, I mean, the model shot to the left is my favourite. That's probably when you was at your pomp, I would say. What about the one on the far right? Is that a very young Jason Gillespie? How old are you there? 19?
That's a very young one, and that's around the time I had the ponytail, so my hair's all slicked back there, and that's before I could actually grow a goatee beard. And I mean, funny story. I actually started growing the goatee. Purely because I was so paranoid about the size of my nose, I wanted to take the focus away from my nose, and so I grew a goatee, and then it just kind of I just got used to it, and now I can't imagine not having facial hair. It just seems really weird to me. I remember I last shaved back in after the 2005 Ashes that you guys won. I got home and I just was clean shaven, and I felt so uncomfortable and so weird that I grew it straight back, and I've never fully been clean shaven since. Just one of those things. But yeah, that one on the second to the right, that's I'm playing for South Australia there, and that's how I got nicknamed the Ponytail Express. Around that time. And then the 1 second from left was my phase when I decided to try and bring the mullet back, Goughie, to world cricket, because I thought there was not enough mullets in cricket. We all grew up watching cricket in the 80s and late 70s and 80s. There were a lot of mullets, and I just thought in the early 2000s that we needed to resurrect the mullet.
And what about the model shot on the far left? I noticed you've not mentioned that one.
No, that's, I think, 1997 Ashes. That was my first ever trip to England. And, I suppose, we'd just come from South Africa. It was my first time in England. And I got injured a couple of times on that tour, but I remember playing against you, mate, and we had a good series. You guys won the first test, and Nasser got a big double 100, didn't he, at Edgbaston? And then we chipped away, and luckily enough came away with the series win. But that was my first series in England, my first time in England as well. I'd never been to the UK before, and probably that's where my love affair with your beautiful country started.
Well, you definitely left an impression on that tour, because I remember facing you at Edinley. I bagged a pair at Edinley. in '97. And you got me out on a pair on my home ground, which you'd recognise what that means to us Yorkshire boys. So you bowled pretty quick, didn't you, at Headingley on that day? I definitely remember that. You had a yard. Definitely had a yard then, Diz.
Yeah. Well, it was my first time at Headingley, and down that hill, it still had the hill there at the time, and I remember thinking at the time, this is one of the greatest cricket grounds ever. Fast, bouncy wicket. I don't know if you remember, Goughie, there was a bit of conjecture about the surface that the curators had prepared, and at the last minute, England management changed the surface, and because I was so worried about the impact that Warney would have, because it looked a dry pitch, and for some inexplicable reason that only England management, the England selectors, we could not get our head around the fact that England had left Andy Caddick out of the team, because we thought him and you were the two bowlers we were most concerned. All our batters, all they spoke about was, we've got to get through. If we get through Gough and Caddick, we're okay. And then when we saw that Caddick had been dropped, all our batters were singing happy birthday. They were delighted. But then it sort of played into our hands that we ended up playing on a faster wicket that had a tinge of green, and it certainly helped a young person like myself who was just trying to establish himself, and managed to pick up a few wickets. I know you got a fifer in the second innings, was it? From memory?
Well,
and
to be honest,
bowled out Matty Elliott
no.
for 199.
Yeah, it was.
You got Matty Elliott out for 199.
I did, yeah. I'll never forget that, mate. It was a good ball, that, as well. Oh, my word.
Great swung in, nipped away.
Oh, yeah. Ricky Ponting got a few. I think he got 140 as well that game. That's the first time I actually looked at Ricky Ponting, mate, that day. I'll never forget it. And you're right about, I'm just going to touch on that. Leaving Caddick out that day, that just summed up England cricket in the 90s, because we had some good players. Everybody talks about how rubbish England were in the 90s. We weren't. We just came up against a great Australian side. But we won some good series. But with Caddick and Gough, we always thought we had a chance. But they dropped Caddick and played Smith into the left armour. They thought it might swing and seam a little bit. And he actually had Elliott dropped, I think, first over. But then he ended up getting
Thorpe, it slipped.
He ended up with none for 120 and were never seen again.
Yeah, the poor lad, and it certainly wasn't his fault that he was selected in place of Caddick, but we were all just thinking, oh my God, like, imagine Caddick on that surface. I mean, it was a good surface to bowl pace on. Caddick would have been unplayable, and I mean, you had us 32 for 4, I reckon, when Ricky walked in and batted with Matty Elliott, and they put on that wonderful partnership. But look, I mean, we were on the ropes. But you were right. I mean, the 1990s, I know England copped some stick about that, but as much as anything, I think it was the lack of trust by the selectors in players. There was no pick and stick philosophy. It was pick for one test, and then if someone doesn't score 100 or take 5 for, they're dropped. And I can only imagine what it was like as a player to not have that backing and support from management and from the selectors. No wonder that the performances were inconsistent, because there's no consistency with selection.
Absolutely spot on, does. And obviously, as a coach, that's what you thrive on now. I've just got a little game for you, Dizzy, because we've talked about some of the games we played against each other. And I've got some pictures, and I want to guess how many times we got each other out. I don't know if you know this, and I didn't know this till I saw it on this sheet, right? So how many times do you think you got me out, Diz, in Test cricket?
I can remember at least 2. I'm going to say 3.
Right. And how many times did I get you out?
Oh, I know you removed my stumps a couple of times at least. I'm going to say that we both got each other out 3 times.
Pretty good effort. I mean, those pictures there, I think this one on the left is Headingley. I skittled you there. That was for 5 foot.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy that.
That was your 5 foot, yeah. I think I got 2 or 3 runs. Yeah, you were too quick for me, mate.
Yeah, so thanks for that one. And the one on the right, that's Perth, isn't it?
That's definitely Perth, yeah. I often talk about that. I often talk about that test in Perth because I remember one night I had 9 overs, none for 69, and I remember thinking my career was over. Ramps and Hickey belted me everywhere at the Wacker, and that night I thought my career was over. The next day I've come out. Mark Taylor was captain, so he just said to me, Diz, I want you to bowl from the Lily Mar stand, Ed, mate. I know you didn't quite get it right last night, but, just adjust your length, maybe a little bit fuller and you'll be fine. And he just gave me a pat on the back and walked off really relaxed. And I'll never forget that. And it was really good man management because I just felt backed and believed in. And I ended up taking a few wickets, pretty quickly. And, I just knew I had the backing of the captain, and I've often reflected on that when I've gone into coaching, and I think a powerful tool we have as leaders, as coaches, as captains is, if a player knows that you genuinely back them, you genuinely believe in them, I think that's one of your most powerful tools as a coach, as a captain, knowing that a player knows that you believe in them. And that was a really good example in my career of having that backing and belief from a captain.
Absolutely, Diz. I'm with you 100%. Sometimes it's just a pat on the back, isn't it? That's all you need as a fast bowler. You just need that support from your coach or your captain. I'm with you 100%. So you got me out 4 times, mate. You got me out 4 times. 2 caught. That would have been at slip. Absolutely at slip.
I reckon I might have got you at Lords. I reckon I nicked you off at Lords.
Yeah. 1 bowled, and 1 LBW. So that's how you got me out. I got you out 3 times.
You clean bowled me twice.
That's it. So I got you out caught once as well. I think I got you caught actually at the Wacker. I think I did get you at the Wacker. But I actually found a stat. But did you know you got 3 in Ian Ashes? You got 5 for 33 at Lords, 7 for 37 at Headingley, 5 for 88 at the Wacker, and you got me out in every one of those games.
Did I?
You got me out in every one of those games to get when you got the 5 for. So I got you at your peak, Diz. I got you at your peak.
Yeah, definitely at my peak. Yeah, it certainly wasn't 05, and when I really struggled in England, I know that. But what a great series that was. But
what about when you look at that Australian team, that great Australian team you played in, Diz? I mean, what were the characters that stood out for you? You've just mentioned your captain there and the support he gave you. Who was within that great Australian side your go-to person?
Look, I think it varied a little bit. Like I said, you'd lean on a different player depending on the timing, the situation. I think we were that tight that we could lean on certain guys. I mean, I used to spend a lot of time with Adam Gilchrist just because I wanted constant feedback on how the ball was coming through to him. So he would be able to give me feedback on if the ball was carrying, was it coming with any pace? Was my seam position good? How was my action? He knew my action really well, so he could give me clean, honest, simple feedback. And so from a cricket point of view, he was a great resource. All the guys that were at slip, same thing, that they could give me that feedback. I spent a lot of time chatting with Glenn McGrath, just keeping things quite simple. Andy Bickle, when he was around the team, he was fantastic. Even though he spent a lot of time as 12th man of the Australian side, but he would be really open and give me advice if he thought that I wasn't bowling as well as I could, even though he was 12th man and desperately wanted to be in the 11. And this is the great bloke that he was and the culture we had at the time. He'd be helping and, saying, oh, Diz, maybe have you thought about this? Maybe you're just not quite hitting the crease here. And that sort of support you have from teammates and particular teammate who's the reality is he probably wants your spot. Probably just really demonstrates the type of culture we had in the Australian side in that era.
Who were your close mates, Diz? I mean, I know obviously playing for Adelaide for a large part of your career, and obviously Buff is you're pretty close to Buff, Darren Lehman. But who were your closest mates within that side?
Yeah, look, a lot of the lads, and we're all close to this day. Damien Fleming was best man at my wedding, so him and I are really good mates. Mike Kasparovich, Andy Bickles, I mentioned, Brett Lee, Adam Gilchrist and I spent a lot of time together. Matty Hayden, we spent some time together. I mean, Justin Langer. I mean, there's so many guys. I can reel them all off. You have moments. You sort of spend time with different people throughout your time in the side. But yeah, look, I could name anyone really. And one thing that's great is from when I played, I could ring up each and every one of the lads. So let's go and have a coffee or let's go for a beer, and it'll be, yep, no problem. We'll meet. Where are we meeting and what time? And we're there and we're catching up. So, it's absolutely brilliant. Love it.
Well, that's special, Diz. I mean, that kind of probably sums up you as an individual, though, and that's why you've made it successfully as a coach, because you are an easygoing person. And just by asking that question and getting back that answer I've just received from you kind of sums you up as a bloke, doesn't it, really? You just love everyone and love everything.
Look, it's I just love playing cricket for my country, for my state, for my county, just for my club. Just great time. And I think the beauty of our sport, Goughie, is that we've always got at least one thing to talk about because we've all got a love of cricket. So we've always got a conversation starter, haven't we? So it just goes from there, really. But I've really enjoyed it. Look, the reality is in life, you may not see eye to eye with each and every person that you cross paths with, but I think there's always that mutual respect. We're involved in the sport of cricket, and I think we all do get along. We may not agree on each and every little thing all the time, but I think there's always that understanding and that respect there that we're all here, we all love the game, we're all mates, we all get along, because that's what it's all about, mate. We're not here for a long time, and we all get along.
Well, there's 259 Test wickets, 71 Test matches. You, like me, probably are grateful you had a successful Test career. But there must be some regret, because when you look back and 71 Tests, really, you should have played 100 Tests, wouldn't you? Injuries played a part in your career, probably like they did mine.
Yeah, I would have loved to, Goughie. No doubt about that. I think, people talk about regrets, and people ask and they say, oh, no, I don't have any regrets, so only learnings. But, I mean, look, on reflection, I think if I had my time again, particularly at the back end of my career, I wish I was a little bit more open-minded. I think I got quite set in my ways as a player about how to do things and how I thought I was right. I wasn't very open to new thoughts, new suggestions and ideas. And I think that was born from the fact that I'd had a lot of setbacks early in my career, had a lot of injuries, and then I found something that worked and I wanted to stick to that. But I wasn't open enough to understand that, maybe I need to continually look to evolve here. And that's when I dropped off, and, I needed the pace. I needed to keep challenging myself and be challenged. And, and I think I got to a point where I was probably at times I was a bit of a stubborn mule. And I think, potentially that probably cost me a year or two at least in the game. But those lessons going into my coaching career, I mean, now I can spot a stubborn mule a mile away because I was that player.
Yeah, and you'd have spotted me a mile off this. Absolutely, because I'm a stubborn mule as well. But when you look back on your on your career and all the players you played against in international cricket, some absolute geniuses with a cricket bat in hand. Is there one player that stands out where you thought, oh, no, I'm not bowling to him again?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I got Kevin Peterson right at the end of my national career, just as he was starting. So I can't say him, but I think if I'd had a few years bowling to him, I reckon he would have been very much in the conversation. As I think he was a very fine player. But my career, I came across some wonderful players. Sachin Tendulkar. I mean, there was an army of Indian players that really took us to the cleaners. VVS Laxman, Rahul Dravid, Sehwag, these sort of guys. Tendulkar, obviously. I remember Varney, 2002 series in Australia. Michael Vaughan had a wonderful series against us and batted beautifully. But if I had to name one player, I mean, Sangakkara and Joe Wardner for Sri Lanka, I thought they were wonderful players.
They were.
Callis for South Africa, Graham Smith played some really important knocks. But look, if I had to name one person, I'd probably say Brian Lara. And the reason I say Brian, because I've often been asked, Goughie, and no doubt you've been asked when you've been at a function or whatever, who's the toughest player to bowl to. And I say Brian because I always felt that with other players, great players in that era that I played, if I bowled a really disciplined line and leg that top of off fourth stump line on a good length, they wouldn't really go anywhere. I knew I could build up, build a lot of dots and not go for many runs and create opportunities. I felt with Brian I could do that for a period of time, but if he changed gears and he was in a mood, he could just change the game in an instant, and he could hit my best ball wherever he wanted to. If he was that way inclined. And he could just change the face of the game in a very short space of time. So for that reason, I just put Brian just a little bit. He may not have the best average or that of all these players that I've spoken about, but to bowl against, I always felt that he was the one that could take the game away from us.
Do you know something? There's something about left-handers when they get in and when they're playing well and you don't quite get it right as a right-handed bowler, they can take you to the cleaners. And when people have asked me the hardest people I bowled at, I always say Gilchrist. Gilchrist is right up there. If you didn't get it spot on to Gilly, and he was coming in when the ball was 50 overs old, he used to take me to the cleaners, and he was so hard to bowl at. But Brian Lara, you're spot on. I missed the 2 games. He got 375 and 400. I always joke with him, but if I would have played in them games, he wouldn't have got 375. But I agree with you for that reason, because when you get something like Lara and he gets in, you just don't think you're ever going to get him out. And he's greedy. With Sachin's right. Great, and he played some dismissive shots, didn't he, Sachin? He used to run in, bowl, top of off, beautiful ball, and you just ping it past you at mid-on and you think, put the spinner on, because there's no point me bowling it in. But with Brian Lara, when he got in, he's just greedy. 375, 400, 501. I mean, how many records does he hold? It's just ridiculous. He was an absolute genius and way ahead his time. But you played in that great Australian side days. They had so much success, winning game after game, the success, and that's why you've all remained good friends throughout. What made him so successful? It wasn't just one player. People try and give credit to a great opening partnership with a ball like you and McGrath, or the best leg spinner that's ever been, Shane Warne. But you go through that whole team, and there was no real weakness.
Yeah, look, I think you're spot on. I think role clarity, I think's a real key, and I can speak from a bowling point of view. Glenn McGrath took the new ball. He bowled down breeze with it, down the hill, whatever. My job was to bowl whatever end Glenn didn't want to bowl at. That was my job. And my philosophy was, 50% of the overs have got to be bowled from the end that most bowlers don't particularly want to bowl at. I may as well be that bloke. So I kind of had that philosophy and that mindset, and I saw it as, this is my chance to play for my country and do a role for the team. I wanted to win games of cricket. How can I help the team win a game? Warney always liked me to bowl at the opposite end of him because I was very heavy on my feet, and I created a bit of a party-sized pizza in my follow-through for Shane. So he'd always say, Dizzy, make sure, have you got brand new spikes on? And yes, Shane. And I would follow through. And because I was very heavy on my feet, I created, little craters there. So we did that. But with our batters knew that, we had a simple philosophy. We set the game up with our batting. Our top six do their jobs. We've got Goughie coming in at 7 who can, I think his role was very clear. If he came in and we were 5 down and we were battling, he could just come out and play aggressively anyway. And if we were 5 down but we were over 300, he had the licence to continue that. So either way, he had the licence to be nice and positive. So he had real role clarity. The top 6 did their jobs with the bat, and then us bowlers. And, if we put enough runs on the board, we just knew that the last 3 days of the game, we were going to spend the majority of the time in the field. So we just set our stall to be in the field for the majority of the last 3 days of a test match. So we prepared for that and we trained for that. And, I know as a bowler, I wanted to be able to be as fit as I possibly could to do my job. And if it meant I had to stand in the field for the majority of, fair chunk of the last 3 days of a test, then I have to prepare for that. And so, look, everyone had their role and everyone was clear. But I think it was a challenging and it was an environment where we were constantly challenged. I know John Buchanan, who was our coach at the time. And look, I understand, some people have come out and said they didn't quite agree with John or didn't quite agree with his philosophies, but he always looked to challenge players, not so much on their cricket, but just in general, and how can you be better? How can we improve? And, he always talked about Everest and we're at base camp. How can we move from base camp to the next level and keep going on an upward trend? And, he was quite good like that.
Helicopter. That's the best way to get up there. But when it comes down to your final series, this great career, obviously, come to an end in Bangladesh. But what a way for it to end, though, Diz. I mean, I was slightly surprised, but you never played again. But a 2-test series, took wickets, and you could talk me through it. The 201. We all love a 201, Diz.
Oh, how long have we got? Gee whiz. I'll need to get another wine here if I'm going to talk about that.
How does that actually?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was dropped after the 05 Ashes, and rightly so. I wasn't bowling well enough. And I went back to Shield cricket, and I had a really good Shield summer for South Australia. Took a lot of wickets and bowled really well. And then the team had come from South Africa and were in Bangladesh on the way home for a 2-test series. And there were a couple of injuries. Also, Glenn McGrath's then wife, Jane, was unwell. So Glenn didn't stay on that tour. He went home, and I got a late call up. And and while I was a reserve bowler, I was picked in the starting 11 pretty much as soon as I arrived to Bangladesh. I think Ricky was keen for me to play. I think purely for my experience on subcontinent conditions, and so I played both tests. And the second test, the first test I managed to bat for a while with Adam Gilchrist. We got over the line and won by 3 wickets the first test in Dhaka, and then Chittagong, because we got a bit of a fright in Dhaka against Bangladesh. And then Chittagong, that was the famous test where I was sent in at number 3. I went in at night watchman for Ricky, who was the number 1 batsman in the world at the time. How I start my Sportsman's Night story, Goughie, I say I get a tap on the shoulder by our captain, who happens to be the number 1 ranked batsman in the world by the ICC ratings, and he says, Diz, and I say, Rick, and he says, I can't do it. I said, Rick, what can't you do? He said, mate, I can't go out and face these Bangladeshis. If we lose a wicket, I mean, look, the ball's spinning. It's the seamers are seaming it everywhere. It's overcast. It's dark. I can't do it. I need you to do my job for me. I say, Rick, I'm happy to do your job for you, mate. And so I put the pads on, I get out there, and I get through that first night, and then I get through 3 other nights.
That's unbelievable. I mean, it's everybody's dream, isn't it, Diz, really? Let's be honest, I would have loved to get I've got a first class 100, but I've not got a test 100. And the nearest I got was my debut, where I was flying against the Kiwis, and I thought I was smashing them to all parts, and I got caught cover for 60, I think it's 65. I was gutted. When I look back now, I threw away 100 there because I was absolutely smacking it. But you didn't just get 100, mate. You got 201. Was there ever a point in that game where you thought, I've had enough here now, let's get the proper players in? I mean, was there ever a point?
It's interesting you say that because it was disbelief. I just kept batting. I had a simple plan. Like I knew that the ball. I joke around and say it was a snake pit. It was spinning and bouncing and doing everything, but it was a pretty docile wicket. And I thought that they only had finger spinners. And I thought, well, if I get my front pad out of the way and I hit the ball when it's on the stumps, I won't get out. And then if it's outside the line of the stumps, I'll just throw my hands at it, and with the fast outfield, I'll be able to get some runs. And so that was my whole batting plan. And then once I'd got to 100, they had like 5 fielders on the fence. It was like one-day field. So I just kept chipping it, like hitting the ball and getting a single. And my second 100 came off 120 balls or something. So I just kept knocking it around and getting singles. I'm thinking, oh, this is a piece of cake. But it was really bizarre. And I kept thinking, oh, surely, I'm going to get the call here to start slogging and, and get out so that the rest of the boys can bat. But yeah, it was just one of those things. I remember I was in about the 160s or something, and I play a big shot and I nearly get bowled, and Mike Hussey comes down the wicket to me and goes, Diz, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean, Hussey? He said, mate, you'll never, ever be in this position again in your life to score a test double 100. Get your head down and just, pull your head in, basically. And I'm thinking, I'm standing there thinking to myself, Huss, carry on, mate. Surely I can do this again. But then by the time I'd sort of listened to him and I walked back to my crease, I realised he was 100% correct. I was never going to be in this position again. So I knuckled down and I just kept ticking away. And, he got out. He got out for 180. He couldn't stand the heat there and couldn't go on and get a double 100. So I was left to my own devices. Michael Clark came in. I managed to tuck Mohammed Rafiq around the corner and brought up my double 100. Raised the bat, and I'm walking off, and I mean, Goughie, look, I'm a coach now, so I like to think I'm a bit of a teacher, and I had a young Michael Clark who was just starting his career for Australia in the early stage of his career, and I saw it as a really good learning opportunity for him. So as we're walking off, and I've just raised the bat, he was 20 not out. I just turned to him, I said, "Pup," and he goes, "Yeah, Diz, what's that, mate?" He said, and I said to him, "Pup, that's how you do it, mate. That's how you score a test double 100," and walked off.
It's brilliant. I think everybody in world cricket were just going, have they got this right? Gillespie, 201 not out.
It was crazy, mate. It was bizarre.
Every time England went to Bangladesh, they got skill for 150. You got 201 in one knock. But if you've got any wine left, listen, I know it's been such a good chat, mate. We've gone on for longer than we probably should, but I want to chat to you about Big Bash. But do you want to chop your wine glass up just quickly?
No, we're good, mate. Let's keep going. Okay. I'm loving this, right, mate. I'm having a great time.
Oh, brilliant. I just want to talk about the Big Bash because, like I said, it's something I'm looking forward to. It's a fantastic tournament. You've been coaching, obviously, Adelaide Strikers, as you are called now. What is it, since 2000 and, how long is it, 5 years now?
Yeah, I've had 5 years, so I've done 5 Big Bash editions. So, so I've got another 3 years, which is lovely. So, the faith that the Saka have shown in me has been fantastic. we feel we've got a really good squad that can challenge for the trophy. So we're pretty excited about it. And as you said earlier in our chat, it is a fantastic tournament, mate. It's so much fun to be a part of. It's an honour to be a part of it, to be honest. It's just so much fun.
Well, tell me about. I've been fascinated by some of these changes they've brought in this year to the Big Bash. When I first read it, I thought, "What's this rubbish?" But the more I look into it, I'm fascinated by it, and I actually enjoy it because I think it does put more responsibility on the coach in game, in house, to make some decisions like the X Factor player, the overs have been reduced down, the power play at the start's been reduced. I think there's some fantastic initiatives going on.
Yeah, look, I think the only thing the thing that would have been ideal, Goughie, is that these things were trialled before the tournament, like maybe in some club cricket or some trial matches. But obviously, with the world we're living in at the moment, with the pandemic and the like, some of these things just haven't been possible. So, look, I understand that, and look, we want to be innovative as a sport. I think, my personal opinion, mate, I think cricket in the history of sport has been the most innovative sport. If you think from the days of when cricket started a long time ago, underarm bowling, then overarm bowling, we played multi-day cricket. We've played 50-over cricket. We played 55-over, 60-over cricket. We played 40-over cricket. Played 20-over cricket. There's been T10.
5-over.
5-over cricket. I mean, we are, without a shadow of a doubt, the most innovative sport that's ever been played. And look, I think with these changes, there's been a lot of discussion, debate. As a coach, I'm all for innovation. I'm all for trying things, and we can review it at the end of the tournament. But you're right. I think the coach does come into it a little bit. I'll sit down with our captain and our coaching staff, and I think we'll make decisions together, I think. I don't think it can be just one person just going, right, this is what we're doing. I think there'll be a real consultancy basis, because that's how we work as a team at Adelaide. We'll work as a team, and we'll get the right squad, because we'll be able to pick 13 players. You can pick an X factor from the other 2 players you name in the 13. So it'll be interesting. And I think the power surge is the 2 overs you can take from the power play any time after the 11th over. So it'd be interesting to see the tactics that different... Sorry, mate?
And the bash boost. Don't forget the bash boost, Diz.
The bash boost. And I think that, being explained that by Cricket Australia, I think the bash boost, I think they're worried that after the first 6 overs, if the team's that's batting second is well behind the 8 ball, I think they're a little bit concerned that the punters are switching off and maybe not as engaged in the game as they'd like. So if there's something still on the game, deeper into the game, it keeps the interest levels up. So look, we'll see what happens. As I said, I'm all for innovation. Let's try it. Let's see how it works, and then let's have a discussion at the end of the Big Bash to see what worked, what maybe didn't quite work, or wasn't as effective, and we go from there.
I mean, obviously being coached this year is probably going to be harder than it's ever been, with a pandemic going on and COVID-19, and getting players to come and agree to come and spend 2 weeks in quarantine. I mean, a player you brought in Phil Salt. Obviously, you know him from your days at Sussex, where you've just actually left. What's your team looking like, Diz? How's it shaping up?
Yeah, we're shaping up really well. We're really excited by what we've got. Our overseas players, you mentioned Phil Salt, who I think is a very exciting cricketer. I think he could have a wonderful career for England. He made such an impact last year for the Adelaide Strikers. I mean, in the history of the Big Bash has been around for 10 years. For any player that scored over 300 runs, Phil has the highest strike rate in the history of the Big Bash. So, look, he's made a really good impression early on. Look, he's a great kid. He's always willing to learn. I think he could have a really, really important role for England moving forward at the moment in short form. But I think from a pure technical point of view, I think he's got the game to succeed in all forms of cricket. So keep an eye on him for the future. He's probably not ready for Test cricket just yet, but I think if he keeps learning and developing his game and keeps challenging himself, I think he could have a role for England in the future. We've also got Rashid Khan, the number one spin bowler, number one bowler on the planet in T20 cricket, captain of Afghanistan. He's been with our franchise 3 seasons previously. We picked him as a young 18-year-old when he probably wasn't that well known. But he's grown into this phenomenon in world cricket. He's been absolutely brilliant. And we've also signed Danny Briggs, who's the number one wicket taker in the history of the T20 Blast in England. I've spent some time with him at Sussex. Obviously, he's now at Warwickshire. The thing I'm excited about, and we are excited about it at the Adelaide Strikers about Danny, is that because we're allowed to have a third overseas, is that Danny's very versatile. He can bowl his left arm spin in any part of the 20 overs. He can bowl the first over or the last over of the innings and anywhere in between. So he's very versatile. He gives our captain many options. He's a great lad. He's very calm head. He's a gun fielder. But that calm head, that experience with all his time playing for England and obviously playing county cricket and T20 Blast, he's a great asset for our franchise.
I must admit, Danny Briggs, I think that is a good signing, actually. I think he's very been underused by England over the years. I think he had a spell with him when he was always part of that squad. But I agree with you. I think he can bowl absolutely anywhere within an innings. And he can bat as well. He's a proper cricketer. Yeah,
he's a good player. We actually, it's funny at Sussex, as coach of Sussex, we didn't play him in 4-day cricket this season just gone in the last 5 games. There was a young kid, Jack Carson, who was playing for Sussex. We decided to give him and Delray Rawlins the spin duties. And I know Danny's desperate to show that, he wants to play all forms of the game. And I think that was in part one of the reasons he left to go to Warwickshire. I know Paul Farbrace, who's the director of sport at Warwickshire, is a big fan of Danny's and believes he can fulfil a role there for them, particularly with the retirement of Jeetan Patel. So that they haven't been flush with spinners. So it's probably a good move for Danny in his career going forward.
Good luck replacing Jeetan Patel. I mean, he's been unbelievable as an overseas player for Warwickshire.
He has.
When we're talking about top overseas players, he's right up there as one of the best. What we do a little thing called Frankenstein cricketer, Diz, right? That means the ultimate cricketer. We build him. And we've done it with the IPL, we've done it with Scottish Irish, we're doing it with KP. But for you, we're going to do it on the Big Bash. So if you are a coach, could pick one batsman out of the old Big Bash this season, and he could be in your squad, who would you have?
Look, there's so many, but you've seen the power that Chris Lynn brings to Big Bash. He's hit, twice as many sixes as any other player in the history of the Big Bash. He certainly gives them a whack. So I'd probably throw Chris Lynn in there, I reckon.
That's absolutely a great pick. I'm surprised he didn't get more game time in the IPL. He didn't get any, did he? I don't think in the end. What about fast bowler?
Fast bowler. I'd love to say Mitchell Starc, but he hasn't really played much Big Bash over the years. I love the left arm variety. I remember signing him for Yorkshire back in 2012 as an overseas for T20, and he was the leading wicket taker in the competition. Helped us get to finals day. Mitchell Starc. Can I say him, even though he hasn't played Big Bash for a few years? Or
yeah, of course you can. You can have him. He's playing this year, isn't he?
I hope so. Well, maybe not against Adelaide, but I hope he plays. I think he's playing for the Sydney Sixers this year.
Yeah, exactly. What about spin bowler? I think you've answered that question. Your very own. You've got him.
Rashid. We don't need anyone else, mate. Rashid Khan is going to go down as the best T20 spin bowler that's ever played the game.
Absolutely. Wicket keeper.
Well, look. Can I say my own players at the Adelaide Strikers?
Of course you can. If that's who you...
No. Well, if that's the case, I would have just gone with all the Adelaide boys. I would have gone Travis Head as a batter. But look, I'd probably Alex Carey, who's the Australian one-day keeper. He fulfills a number of roles. He's opened the batting in T20. He's batted down in the middle order. I think he's one of the most adaptable and versatile cricketers going around. And I think when Tim Payne retires from Test cricket, I think he's ready to take that opportunity and have a very fine Test career. So I'm going to say Alex Carey.
Yeah, good shot. Who's the best fielder at this moment in time in Australia?
Look, there's some great fielders, but I'm going to probably say I still think Glenn Maxwell is outstanding. I think he's got a brilliant arm. I think he reads the play extremely well. And I think the fact that it's his favourite part of cricket, believe it or not, there's not many cricketers who would say their favourite part of the game is fielding. He genuinely loves fielding. And he takes it personally if the ball gets past him in the infield. And I think he's got one of the best arms I've ever seen in the game. And, so I'm going to say Glenn Maxwell. Yeah,
good shout again. What about the captain? Some good cricket brains in Australia, some good skippers. Who's got the best brain?
Yeah, look, I'm a big rat for Travis Head, but I'm gonna go. There's Travis Head at Adelaide Strikers. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. But I'm gonna, in the interest of spreading the load a little bit, and I'm going to say Moses Enriques from the Sydney Sixers. I think he's been very good. I think he's a calming influence. He's a calm head. I think he's a very fine cricketer. And he led his team to the Big Bash title last year very well. So I'm going to say Moses Enriques.
Well, I'm looking forward to the Big Bash and good luck with that. And just quickly on the big series over there, India versus Australia, there's some big things going on. You might have to help me out with the pronunciation of it. Indigenous series, I think it's called, Diz. There's going to be support of global anti-racism movement and to recognise the country's indigenous people. I think it's a great thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly, mate. Look, the Barefoot Circle, there's a lot about welcome to country. So welcome to country, Goughie, is basically it's an acknowledgement that we're playing our sport on Indigenous land, Aboriginal land. And as an Indigenous person myself, as an Aboriginal man, it's something that's very close to my heart. I was fortunate enough to read the Welcome to Country for our last Shield game against Queensland at Glenelg the other week. So it's fantastic. I think it's a great initiative by Cricket Australia. And, at the end of the day, I think it is our culture, Australia. Aboriginal culture is the oldest continuous culture on the planet. And it's something that, as a country, we are very proud of, and for those who don't know much about it, we should be very proud of it. And I think it's just a great initiative from Cricket Australia to acknowledge our Indigenous forefathers.
Absolutely. Just going back to 1988, I think it was, I played against Australia in Australia, England under 19s, and they used to have a Aboriginal cricketer called Kenny Vowles. Does that ring a bell? Do you remember Kenny Vowles?
I know Kenny very well. He's actually a politician in the Northern Territory these days.
Wow. Yeah, what a character he was, mate. I'll tell you what, back in the day, Diz, he could play. He smashed it to all parts. I remember at MCG, he had the fastest 100 there, beat Viv's record.
Yeah, Kenny Vowles is a real character of Australian cricket and particularly Northern Territory cricket. He's a Darwin lad, an Aboriginal lad, and just a wonderful human being, wonderful cricketer. But always based in, he's a Northern Territorian. And, he's a bit of a god up there, a bit of a legend up in the Northern Territory.
Oh, definitely great character. And just some of the battles in that series, David Warner versus Agarwal. That's going to be an interesting battle. How do you see who edges out these key partnerships, what I'm going to give you in a minute?
Oh, I'm going to say Warner just there. I think a home, as much as anything, just home advantage, really. And I think Dave's up and about, ready for the battle.
And in the middle order, you've got some fantastic players there, Labuschagne and Pujara. Pujara obviously playing for Yorkshire back in the day, but you've got two good cricketers there, Diz. Who will edge that one?
Yeah, look, hard to split that. Look, I think Pujara is a really important member of this Indian batting lineup. They've got a lot of stroke makers. Pujara, I think, can be a stroke maker, but he's chosen to just base his game on absorbing great bowling and getting through and allowing, you know, the stroke makers after him to be able to have that freedom. He absorbs a lot of the good bowling. Marnus is probably a bit more of an aggressive player than Pujara. You know, I think it'll come down to how the bowling attacks approach each of those guys. But I'm probably just going to say Pujara might just edge that one out.
And it's a shame, isn't it? Virat Kohli is going to be going home for the birth of his child, go and support his wife. Because him and Steve Smith, we all like to see battles between those two of the greatest players in the world.
Yeah, I think in time will be two of the greatest players that have played our great game. Two wonderful cricketers. Yeah, and you're right. It is a shame, but it's obviously the right decision for Virat and his family for him to go home. No question. It is a shame, but no question, it's the right decision. Look, it is what it is. I think we just celebrate the fact and be up and about the fact that we're going to see Virat for one test match. It's better than no test matches. So I think we just celebrate that.
And just quickly on the bowlers, I mean, when I look at the bowling that's going to be involved in this game, some of the skills in the fast bowling department is out of this world. Just two of them there. Mitchell Starc, you've talked about. We all know how good he is, at the start of the innings, taking early wickets, and then his good Yorkers and his pace at the death. But India have got Bumrah, Jasprit Bumrah, who for me in T20 cricket now is the best in the world.
I think Bumrah at the end of his career will be probably seen as one of, if not India's greatest fast bowler. I just think he's that good. You know, he possibly could just edge out Mitch in this case. Mitch, you know, the way Australia used Mitchell Starc, I think, is very good. Use him up front and the ball's swinging and he looks to impact early. But then he's very good at cleaning up the lower order with his pace, his trajectory, and hitting those Yorkers. But I think Bumrah overall can bowl in all phases, probably is slightly more effective. But at the end of the day, Mitchell Starc's approaching 250 Test wickets. I mean, you know, he's done really, really well, and you know, it's a tough one to split that, to be honest.
It is. And my favourite Aussie bowler at the minute is Pat Cummins. I think he's absolutely outstanding, the way he bowls. But let's not underestimate Mohammad Shami at the minute. He's bowling really, really well. He's got good skills, hasn't he? A nice, economical run-up. He hits the good areas and he makes the ball swing both ways. So that's a good contest.
He does. Mohammad Shami, I think he's got one of the best wrist positions going around. He presents the seam brilliantly and it gives the ball every chance to do something off the straight. As you mentioned, he can swing the ball as well. I think he's a fine bowler. I think he's improved a lot in the last 2 years. Pat Cummins is a superstar. We know that. I think he's a wonderful bowler. You know, and again, tough to split that. If you put me on the spot, I'm probably just going to say Pat Cummins.
And two great spinners. You've got the GOAT, Nathan Lyon. Everybody's talking about it. But the other GOAT, obviously, Ashwin. He's pretty special as well. So that's a good battle as well on the spin department.
Yeah, look, I think it's a great battle. I think Nathan Lyon just edges that out. In Australian conditions, he's been unbelievable for a long time and found ways to impact and take wickets. So I'm going to say Nathan Lyon ahead of Ashwin in that regards. You haven't mentioned Josh Hazlewood, who I think is one of the best bowlers that will go down as one of the best bowlers that Australia's produced. I think he's a belter and not to be underestimated.
I probably don't give him the credit he deserves, Diz. I don't know why. I must admit, I was impressed by him the last time series I saw, but the one before that, I wasn't. I thought he was too predictable. It was almost like he was stuck in between being a Glenn McGrath type or a Jason Gillespie. He was somewhere in the middle, and I couldn't quite work out what he was trying to achieve. But the last series I saw him play, I was very impressed by him. So he's somebody, there's a slow burner. He's growing on me, Josh Hazlewood.
Yeah. No, fair. And look, I understand that. I think it's really interesting to get feedback from batsmen on bowlers sometimes. And you talk to batsmen around the country here, and they all say Josh Hazlewood hits the bat as hard as anyone, which is really interesting. I think he's a fine bowler, and he's approaching 200 Test wickets. I think he's been fantastic for Australia for a number of years now.
And Diz, we all know you fell in love with English cricket. You did a great job, obviously, for Yorkshire. You are the adopted Yorkshireman, without a doubt, for what you did for the great county. Obviously, you had a coaching stint there at Sussex as well. You're now with Adelaide Strikers. Where do you want to go next? Are you just happy there doing that, or have you still got ambitions to get and coach at international level?
Yeah, at the moment, look, I had some wonderful times in the UK, and I'll always cherish that. I don't think it's the last time I'll be in the UK. I would love to have another stint coaching county cricket in England. Where and when, who knows? But I'd love to be in a position to be able to do that. At the moment, my Australia and the Adelaide Strikers. But moving forward, I think at some point, coaching an international side would be wonderful. It'd be a wonderful opportunity, and if I could be afforded that, I think that'd be absolutely fantastic. But at the moment, my focus is South Australia and the Adelaide Strikers, and just got into the role with South Australia, and I'm absolutely relishing it. I can't begin to tell you how much I'm enjoying it at the moment. It's so much fun, and I haven't been home full time in Adelaide, Goughie, for a long time now. So to be home 12 months of the year, is a nice feeling.
Absolutely, Diz. Something, I could chat to you for another hour. I really could. But I've really enjoyed this one, Diz. It's been my favourite so far. Thanks very much for your time. Good luck in the Big Bash, mate. I'll be cheering for the Adelaide Strikers. I do love that place, Adelaide, and I honestly will be an Adelaide Strikers supporter. Thanks very much for your time, mate. Really appreciate it.
Goughie, always a pleasure, mate. Great to chat to you, pal.
Oh, absolutely super. Cheers, Diz. Good night, mate. Have another glass of wine.
Good on you, mate. I'm just about to go and pour it, mate. Thank you, mate. Great to chat to you as always,
please.
My friend.
Yeah. Love, mate.
How do I turn this bloody thing off?
You've got to. I hope you're still recording, because that's genius.